Whoa, how you doing, everyone? Jennifer McCreath, Saturday, June 25th, 2022. Well, I guess the big story around the world is what happened in the Supreme Court of the United States yesterday. The overturning of Roe versus Wade. And I find it interesting and ironic, because a lot of people say we kind of figured this was coming, but it's still a shock that it happened. And I think that's a fair assessment of this. I study politics, public policy, and I have a lot of work experience in the Canadian justice sector. I know that the US system is very different, and I won't claim to be an expert on it, but what I did say and did know, the night Donald Trump was elected president, I realized that something like this was going to happen. I said, even long after this guy is removed from office, the way the system is set up, he's going to be able to put people into positions of power that will cause a lasting legacy of the type of politics he represents. And it's interesting. I know in Canada we don't vote for judges. They're appointed by the government. I know in the US certain justice-related positions are elected and some are appointed. This is a very interesting case study because, as we generally know, law is based on precedent. And a lot of people get angry when, I guess, judges, lawyers, crowns, court systems, etc. make decisions, but in many cases their hands are tied, because that's what precedent does. It gives you a benchmark for which future legal decisions will be followed. I guess the only thing that's open for negotiation is the interpretation of these laws and the interpretation of some of these precedents. Ultimately, the only people that can, if you want to change or get rid of a precedent, you need to go to the legislation. And that's where the politicians come into play. If you don't like the rules, you got to change the rules. Don't get angry at the judges and the lawyers. They're just interpreting and enforcing the rules that are in place. Now, what we have here is a completely different group of judges in 2022 compared to the judges from 1970, I guess it was 71, 72, 73. And you would think, in theory, if the precedent is clear, if the rules are clear, judges would look at the same case and come to the same conclusion. This is not what happened. So obviously that calls into question, is there political bias here? Is there loopholes that will allow judges to not follow the rules or not follow the precedent? I keep hearing that this goes back to the Constitution, and if something is not explicitly stated in the constitutional document, which my understanding was last reviewed and updated over 140 years ago, in the 1800s. That's the argument. They say, well, there's nothing in the Constitution about this, so you don't have explicit federal rights. And it falls to the states. I mean, and what's ironic is here we are in Canada. Our healthcare system technically is overseen by the Canada Health Act, but that act has no teeth. It basically says the same thing, that provinces will decide what healthcare is provided and what healthcare is not. And it's interesting, though, to see how the perception is that the feds seem to have more power and control. And I guess that's what the issue is here. even though the states have some autonomy to make decisions about what healthcare is provided or not provided, or legal or not legal, it's the guidance from the feds that is the concern here. I'm gonna take a sip of coffee here, if you don't mind. I've still been battling a sore throat. It's I've got this nagging cough that doesn't want to go away, although I do feel a lot better. If you've watched my videos last week, I was in very rough shape. Bottom line, it appears quite clear that oppressed minorities are being targeted by the legacy of extreme Republican right-wing people that Trump has put into positions of power. Earlier this week, we saw FINA. I can't even remember what they're called. The overseeing, internationally respected and recognized body that oversees water aquatic events. FINA came out and banned most trans people from participating in sports. And a lot of the people applauding FINA are now being oppressed with this abortion stuff. And essentially the Republicans have gotten minority groups to turn on each other and fight against each other. And what we really all need to do is stand up. Stand up to these so-called male, rich, old, right-wing conservatives who are making all these decisions. Women's rights, trans rights, indigenous rights, oppressed people based on skin color or religion, everyone who's being targeted. I think we all need to find some common denominators and work together and stand up. If all the women, LGBT, indigenous, colored, if all these people got together and said, we're not going to vote Republican, that would probably wipe out a lot of the Republicans in the next election. And that's really what this all comes down to. Same thing up here in Canada. It all starts with the politicians who you elect. They're the ones that oversee these foundation documents. We don't have a constitution here in Canada, but we do have a charter of rights and freedoms, which I gather is more open than the U.S. Constitution. If the U.S. court says if something is not written in the Constitution, then it doesn't count, whereas for years people have filed charter challenges saying the charter is an overreaching umbrella that covers rights for everybody, even if they're not explicitly stated. Bottom line, I think the experts out there are saying, what next? And I guess that's a good question. What is next? If you can have a Supreme Court take away rights that were allegedly entrenched 50 years ago, again, what's next? And I think this is a huge concern. How far back are we going to go? Are they going to target same-sex marriage? Are they going to target trans people, trans health? Other news commentators said, are they going to ban interracial marriages? And heck, are we going to go back and re-legalize racism such as slavery? I mean, how far is this going to go? And how far will you, the U.S. people, let this go? 21 years ago, a famous Canadian comedian slash journalist, Rick Mercer, put together I guess we'll call it a documentary, proving through comedy and that the idea that Americans think that Canadians and Americans are pretty much all alike, whereas a lot of Canadians will say, no, we're not like the US at all. And some people are now saying what happens in the US will trickle effect up here. Not necessarily. Not necessarily. And but at the same time, especially as we go through a pandemic, if we learn our lesson 100 years ago, the last time we had a global health pandemic of the same magnitude of COVID, at the end of that pandemic we had a recession and we had a world war. And as I look around and watch the news, I see the damage that has been done because of this pandemic. Businesses closing, people losing their jobs, people going broke. Heck, if you've been watching my videos, you know my financial situation is in serious, dire straits. When people are desperate, what's that Bob Dylan song? When you have nothing, you've got nothing to lose. People tend to be more susceptible to join extremism, whether it's far left or far right, and this is where you get the problems. And COVID may allegedly be at the endemic stage, but we're far from out of the problems, at least from the economy. We've got inflation here in Canada, and I guess in the US the price of gas has gone way up, while the salaries people are making is going down. Again, desperate times lead to desperate measures, and this is what happens. People feel that they've got nothing to lose, so they're going to go out and take risks. They're going to join these extreme movements without caring what the consequences are. And look at another thing in the news is this January 6th committee. Yeah, I mean, bottom line, when someone, I don't know who coined the phrase, but when one person's rights are taken away, we all need to take note, because an attack on one of us is an attack on all of us. I've been fairly dormant in terms of my human rights activism as of late. It's well known that between the years 2008 and 2014, I put a lot of time and effort into activism specifically for the members of the trans community. Then I kind of had to step away and focus just on my own life and my own survival. It's kind of where I'm at now, just trying to survive. But I think the world needs me to step up to the plate and put that voice out there a little more. I'm sick and tired of others speaking for me or making decisions for me without properly consulting me. The FINA thing really got my attention this week, because it just goes to show you how out of touch of reality certain people with power are. And now watching the way the Supreme Court has handled this Roe versus Wade reversal, it's yet again just evidence that people in powerful positions don't have a fucking clue. And we just can't let this happen. We're literally going to see our planet explode and devolve to the point where, who knows, there could be another world war. Yeah, those are my thoughts. And it's interesting over the years. I mean, we've had some conversations in the past about abortion and some concerns that were raised, I believe 10 or 11 years ago, about if you could abort a trans baby, would you? And I find it ironic that as the Canadian Conservative Party goes through a leadership, they actually have a female candidate who is pushing the anti-abortion agenda on the concept of sex-selective abortions. Saying, I don't know what she's saying, but... And people tried to turn what I said against me, and it was purely a hypothetical situation. I don't know that we'll ever be able to identify whether or not someone is trans before they're born. I just don't think medically that will ever happen. So it's really a moot discussion. Bottom line, this is about human rights and taking away an individual's rights to basic privacy and freedom. And Pierre Trudeau said the government has no business in the bedrooms of the nation. And I think the United States needs to listen to that advice. Whether it's abortion or contraceptives or who you want to marry, who you want to have sex with, government really has no business getting involved to that level of personal privacy. And this is ultimately a huge attack on that. And the world needs to be outraged, and the world needs to stand up and fight this the best we can. In the US, you've got midterm elections coming up, and here's your opportunity to get as many Republicans out of office as you can. I know you may be stuck with these Supreme Court justices until, I don't know, are they appointed for life or are they appointed till they're a certain age? But yeah, my understanding is you're stuck with these people for quite a while. Again, maybe you need Democrats to create new legislation that says you can get rid of judges who are corrupt or incompetent. But yeah, don't turn a blind eye to this. Pay attention. If you've never voted in your life, here's your chance. Get to know what these issues are. Rally around them. Talk to other people about this. It's not just, everybody's vote counts. But the biggest power is the power of sharing information and persuading people. Look, Trump pulled the wool over our eyes, and we can't let this continue. Stand up and do something about this, U.S. Because the rest of the world is... If we're not laughing at you, we're afraid of you. You keep saying you're the world power and that the President of the United States is the most powerful person in the world. Well, the United States, you're no longer the shining example of leadership in the world. You're not at all. In fact, people are starting to compare you with some of the most corrupt countries in the world, where there's inappropriate dictatorship, human rights violations, and that's not the United States I've known and followed and been neighbors with, ironically, since 1973, when I first made my appearance. I think this video's gone on long enough. I don't know if it's making any sense or not, but I think it helps to just talk my feelings out sometimes and put them out there. And so there you have it, for what it's worth. My thoughts on the reversal of Roe versus Wade. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great day.